Splatoon 2 is a game released by Nintendo on the 21st of July 2017. A sequel to Splatoon, which, like its predecessor, is a third-person shooter game that features you playing as a character called an Inkling and using colored ink as ammunition and as a way to paint the ground. Hi, I'm Bean, and this is a clip from Splatoon 2. You may have heard of the game. It had a pretty good media campaign a few years ago. But in reality, the game is so much more than this song, and it has a community that has so much passion and love for the game, and so much underlying lore and substance that goes past so many other games that I play on a daily basis. So, let's get into it. Splatoon 2's gameplay varies greatly depending on what you want to play. The game offers something for more casual players and players who are more competitive and looking for something in that way. Because Splatoon 2 is, when you get down to it, a game where you try to paint the ground better than the other team, but in different ways. In the game's most well-known mode, Turf War, their only goal is to paint as much of the ground as possible and to make sure the other team doesn't paint more than you. In Splat Zones, a ranked mode, you need to control a point by leaving it painted and keeping the enemy team away from it. In Tower Control, you have to stay on a tower and move it to the other side of the map. Thinking of the hill, but a little bit different. And in Rainmaker, you get a rocket launcher you can use to take out your enemies in one hit. You gotta try and get it to the other team's goal by dunking on a podium, and then you can win and get the game and rank up. And I think it's obvious that this is my favorite mode. And there's also Clan Blitz. I don't like Clan Blitz. And how could I talk about the gameplay without mentioning the two single-player campaigns and the Wave Survival Mode Salmon Run? I'll talk about the single-player campaigns, so spoilers ahead if you care. The Octo Canyon single-player campaign follows you through the Octo Canyon. Look, this is a good game, but they could have at least put more time into naming things. Like, tell me why this is called The Reef. It's a shopping center, and it's called Muscle Forge Fitness. It's a fitness center called Muscle Forge. Get it? Because muscle sounds like muscle. Oh, and also Kelp Dome. Where's the kelp? I should probably go back talking about the beautifully named Octo Canyon. This is a story campaign that follows Agent 4, you, the player, through Octo Canyon. You meet Marie, one of the main characters from Splatoon 1, and she says that her sister is missing. This is weird also, but this is something that's really cool. The community got to choose this. Nintendo went to the community and for the last Splatfest, which we'll go into what those are later on, so you know what they are. Let players join a team for one of the main characters, Kelly or Marie, and one final competition between the sisters. This Splatfest was different though. Usually they came and went with some random theme like cats or dogs, and this was an incredible example. Snowman vs Sandcastle. There was an event that was decided to seeing if people like building snowmen or sandcastles more. But with this Splatfest, your decision would affect the storyline of the next game. Marie won the last Splatfest, so that changed what would happen. Who knows what would have happened if Kelly won instead? We will never know. Quick editor's note. People think that if Kelly would have won, it would have just been the same game, but instead of Kelly being missing, it just would have been Marie. But that doesn't matter just yet. You go through Creative Name Canyon and explore the whole area, fighting the Octarians, Octolings which go for the trope of being you but stronger, a toaster, a big octopus samurai, a big box with Nicki Minaj lips, and a flying toaster that can shoot you through walls. Over time, learning more and more about Kelly's possible whereabouts until you end up in the depths of hell itself. Wait, no, sorry, it's actually called Cephalon HQ. Get it like Cephalopod? Either way, Kelly is here and you fight the final boss, TG Octavio. The final boss features you shooting back his fists? Either way, it's a sort of recycled boss fight anyway, and they did this in the first game. Halfway through the fight, Marie and Sheldon show up and they snipe Kelly, and then Kelly just kind of passes out. Either way, the Squid Sisters... I hate this game. Are reunited. You kill Octavio with the Rainmaker by dunking it on his head, and boom, roll the credits. Now, I could use this time to talk about the Octo expansion, the game's paid DLC that added another 80 story missions and a whole new species to play as, but I think I want to talk about the game's co-op Wave Survival Mode for a minute, Salmon Run. Salmon Run is a game mode that runs periodically a couple of times a week with a set map, set list of 4 weapons, and a set of rewards that are either good or complete shit. The goal is to survive the 3 waves and make sure you're collecting all of the golden eggs to fill your quota. You need to kill increasingly more difficult waves of summoners, and eventually when you complete the run, you'll get a score that this contributes to your overall score for the whole time period. Think kind of like COD Zombies, but with children shooting ink and weird fish creatures and a stack of pans. To end off this part of the video, I'm going to talk about the Octo expansion. The Octo expansion came out on the 13th of June 2018 and got released to very positive reviews from the community. The DLC follows Agent 8, an Octoling who gets stuck in a deep sea metro. Agent 8 has forgotten everything, and the only thing that they remember is the Calamari incantation. Let's go! You meet a talking phone who has no relevance to the plot of the campaign at all, and then begin to play some good levels, some that are sort of okay, and then there's Girl Power Station. I won't say too much about the campaign because it's fairly long and there's a lot there. There are a couple of really cool features that got added. For example, the ability to play as an Octoling in online matches, and the ability to spend countless hours of your life fighting the same boss over and over to get a toothpick as a reward. A fucking toothpick! This game is shit. Also, I think I didn't mention Pearl and Marina, the game's news anchors and probably 2 of the main characters, especially in the DLC campaign. Pearl is short and a child and also a rapper, and Marina... She's cool, I guess. Also, I think I need to mention in the Splatoon lore, Pearl made a song that is so vulgar it couldn't be played on Inkopolis' radio stations. He's part of it. Apparently that's swearing in squid. The game overall, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It loses points really just for the toothpick. Yeah, it's just a toothpick. That's the whole reason it loses 3 points. I mean, hey, at least you get special charge up. Splatoon was getting consistent content updates, each usually adding a new weapon or changing the way the game's balance works. From 1.0 onwards, every month or so, a new map or set of guns would get added, and would change how people play the game for a couple of weeks until everything usually went back to normal with a few changes. These updates would add either new weapons like the fucking Blobber, which we'll come back to in a bit, or bring back things from Splatoon 1. For example, some of the maps were added back with free content updates after release. For example, Arowana Mall and Anchovy Games, in almost the same state they were in when they got released originally. They also added Walleye Warehouse after the game's release. Let's go, baby! Best map in the game! Either way, as time went on, the updates became more and more sporadic, and after they released the fucking Splatoon anime opening, they said that after that update, there would be no new maps, and that the updates would start to slow down. On the 3rd of April 2019, Sheldon's Picks, something that was released at the end of Splatoon 1 to add more interesting combinations to weapons that maybe didn't get as much love from the community, or to add a 3rd variation of weapons, and also bringing back all of the variants from Splatoon 1, like the Grim Range Blaster and the Fresh Squiffer. This also led to the single greatest weapon in the game being brought back, the Heavy Splatling remix. Eventually they announced the last Splatfest, Chaos vs Order, which I mentioned earlier, and then 2020 happened. Considering the fact that people had nothing to do, Nintendo announced that they will be rerunning a small number of Splatfests to bring life to the game and to give people something to do when there wasn't anything else they could do at all. This led to the global rerunning of Mayo vs Ketchup, Chicken vs Egg, Trick or Treat, and a new Splatfest that commemorated the 35th anniversary Super Mario Bros. Super Mushroom vs Superstar. Major title updates like the 2.0 update added over 100 new clothing items, player appearance options, new music, a new Salmon Run stage to be added in the coming week, 4 new stages, 2 from Splatoon 1 and 2 new stages, a new photography feature, a prestige system, and an increased level cap, and at the same time, managed to rebalance guns and fix a bunch of bugs that the game had at the time. The 3.0 update changed how ranked works, adding X-Rank into the game, which holds some of the best players in the game, allowing players to talk to Callie and Octo Canyon once they meet the conditions, adding new music, new weapon combinations, once again adding over 100 new gear pieces, brought back the Stage Camp Triggerfish from Splatoon 1, and still fixed multiple bugs and rebalanced a large number of the game's weapons. While these massive content updates were infrequent, hell, there are only 4 in the game's life cycle, each coming out multiple months after each other. The game always managed to feel fresh, like, for example, the 4.0 update, which completely overhauled the Splatfest system, added a whole new set of weapons called the Kensa Collection, which added some of the most powerful weapons in the game. For example, the Kensa Splattershot Pro, which dominated the game's meta before it got absolutely shit on. While these updates weren't coming out constantly, every time they did, it was exciting because it meant that there were new things to try, and maybe, just maybe, they would nerf the ballpoint splatling. I've had a mixed experience with Splatoon 2. I love the game itself. It is creative, it is colorful, it is light and easy to play, and you know exactly what your objective is at all times, but it's not binding, because you can still do whatever you want. It just comes down to who can aim better at the end. But the community who run tournaments and everything else for the game had to create a group called the Splatoon Competitive Community Safety Council to get rid of people who are harmful in the community and overall bad people. Reading over some parts of the code of conduct is really depressing because of the fact that these have to be on here because nearly everything on this code of conduct has happened at some point or another. I'll be lying if there weren't some great people in this community because there definitely are. Hell, I made some great friends in this community and there is definitely a large group that aren't great people. Also really enjoyed the game's content creators. The Splatoon YouTubers are a group of incredibly creative and dedicated people who love the game that they play and want to create interesting content. I don't really know what to say here, except for the fact that these people have created some incredible content. For example, Vic Villain's Splatoon weapon ad videos, which explain in a short, fast-paced video the basics of a weapon and how to use it. Fantastic's character Bridget, a sort of what if the silent character had a voice character, and his Switch Up series, which is a Splatoon Funny Moments compilation series. GG Gabriel Gaming's In a Nutshell videos and his Splatoon 2 Shorts collab video, which use community-made and submitted clips to make a fast-paced and chaotic video. And lastly, I'll mention Octoboy, as even though they may not upload for months, every single video that they release is always incredibly well done and entertaining. These are only 4 of the plethora of incredible Splatoon YouTubers that make incredibly good content. I have, at a time, played this game competitively. I was on a team called Arcade Rebels throughout the beginning of 2019 and sort of hopped around teams and played in tournaments here and there, like Off the Dial and the Oceanic series very briefly. I never won that many tournaments or matches, but they were all fun. Off the Dial made for some incredibly funny moments, none of which I have recorded, and the Oceanic series made for these. And how could you have a game that exists at this time without people trying to speedrun it? Splatoon has a pretty well-sized speedrunning community that's dedicated to the game and also breaking it in more ways than one. Like, for example, this is a bug that lets you instantly power on a Switch with only painting a little bit of it. That's the only one I use, but there are definitely a few more. I've tried my hand at speedrunning the game. In reality, I did it for this video to get a bunch of the clips you're seeing in the background. I'm not the fastest speedrunner, but I know what I'm doing. I used to try out single level runs like this specific run here. Splatoon 2 is a game released by Nintendo on the 21st of July 2017, which was a sequel to Splatoon which, like its predecessor, is a third-person shooter game that features you playing as an Inkling and using colored ink as ammunition and as a way to paint the ground. But it's so much more than that. It's a way to make new friends, to learn new things, to find new torture methods, possibly. And while this game's community is a train wreck, it doesn't change the fact that I love this game and I'm gonna miss it in a few weeks' time. Am I excited for Splatoon 3? Definitely. The game looks like it's gonna be worth our wait and that our hype was definitely worth it. And it looks like we're getting a new story campaign with new mechanics, a really cool hobby area, and so many new ideas to revitalize a game that has suffered over the past few years due to neglect from its developers. Am I gonna miss Splatoon 2? Definitely. I don't think it's possible to not miss a game that you've sunk nearly 800 hours into. I'm gonna miss turning my Switch on during summer and playing the game all day. I'm gonna miss my incredibly large collection of gear, my weapons, my progress in the single player campaigns, and the work I put into getting all the things that I needed to be able to play weapons in the best possible way. This game was a break from reality when things got dark enough, and yeah, the game isn't going offline forever. It's still going to be there, sitting, gathering dust, waiting for someone to pick it back up. But it just won't feel like when the game was getting updated consistently and just growing. I love Splatoon 2, and I'm gonna miss it.